Good. Welcome back to CECP's 11th CEO Investor Forum. We're moving through our second day of hearing from leading CEOs sharing their sustainable, long-term integrated business plans with investors and stakeholders around the globe, interspersed with a number of great panels that we've had as well. And all of these presentations are FT compliant, will be available for you as interested by the company or on the C-suite platform. I'm really delighted to have our next CEO, who was introduced through a common friend, Vijay Manthripragada, who is the CEO of Montrose Environmental. This is one of the smaller companies we've had on the platform, but really a really interesting company when we think about climate innovation, climate leaders, and people providing climate solutions, given the challenges the world is really facing. So, we've heard from CEOs of Siemens, from BD, Nestle, cross-sector industry, and it'd be great to get a view of a publicly traded, but on the company that's really looking to solve these environmental issues. So, welcome, Vijay.
Thank you so much, Daryl. It's wonderful to join you, and thank you for having me this evening. I apologize for the background noise. I'm actually en route in Europe visiting some of our clients on the water treatment side here in Northern Europe and Scandinavia. So hopefully we'll see you next time in person, but thanks again for the time. I'm very excited to share more about Montrose Environmental, especially given that we're a smaller company compared to many of you that are part of CECP. But we think we're having a very tangible and measurable impact, positive impact on the environment by virtue of our business model. So we're thrilled to share more of that with you. By way of background, and I'm not going to speak to the pages in the presentation kind of linearly, but I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the story of Montrose. We were started in Southern California in 2012, 2013, in that era. So we're about a 10-year-old company. And we're an environmental pure play. Our mission, as we shared with Daryl and several others already, is to help protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the soil that feeds us. And in essence, what that means is that our revenue, our profits, and our cash flows all come directly from having a positive impact on our shared environment. And that sounds great as a mission, but we often get the question, what does that actually mean in terms of what you do? So to give you a couple of tangible examples of the services that we provide, we are one of the largest air testing firms in North America. So we are actively and regularly measuring greenhouse gas emissions from various primarily industrial client facilities to help them both with reporting and compliance. And as importantly, we often remove CO2 from the industrial production processes, which I'll talk about more in a second. As another example of a service that we provide, we treat water. So for example, we remove forever chemicals or PFAS from water and get water back to our communities using proprietary technology. We convert, as a third example, ag waste and industrial waste into negative carbon intensity renewable energy with some of our unique technology partners. And we primarily work with the private sector. So unlike many in the environmental industry that focus more on government, we are industry focused, and we're a leader in helping our clients manage environment and climate risks and compliance with environmental regulations. What makes us a little different, which was a question we got when we first met the CECP team, is that we are technology forward. So we have about 17 patents and some unique software that gives us an edge in the environmental markets that we play in and that we serve. And to steal the nomenclature of Bain & McKinsey that looked at our business model, we're also unique in that we're vertically integrated. Our business model is also a differentiated service offering or solution set. And what I mean by vertically integrated is that we think of the environment as an interconnected organism. So just like taking care of the human body, we think environmental advisors and consultants, like primary care physicians, should be closely coordinated with environmental testers, like the radiologists and phlebotomists, who should also be coordinated and closely coordinated with the folks that are treating the environment through treatment technologies. And the reason that matters, that view, is that the industry has historically been fragmented. So thousands of companies serve niche regulations and geographies, So each part of what I just described is often done by a different company, and it's not always coordinated. And as a result, outcomes aren't optimized. And by vertically integrating the environmental industry, we believe our outcomes for our clients and for the environment are optimized and enhanced. I mean, candidly, the other point that's worth making for this audience is that we've perhaps been luckier than we are smart. We're in a large, according to third-party experts, a $1.3 trillion industry. It's poorly defined, but it feels a lot like the internet did in the early 1990s. It's dynamic, it's growing, it's moving quickly, it's regulated. And because of our focus on environmental outcomes, we've been the beneficiaries of rapidly evolving within that industry. And to give you a sense for our cadence, as I mentioned earlier, we're about 10 years old, so we got off the ground in 2013. It took us about 3 years to get from zero to about $100 million in revenue in the 15-16 arena. And at that time, we were around 30, 40 locations in the US. We went public in 2020, right in the midst of COVID, with about $250 million in revenue and a presence primarily in North America. And right now we're kind of run rate 700 million in revenue with 3,500 colleagues around the world, 90 offices in North America, Northern Europe, which is where I'm at the airport on my way there right now, and Australia. And so it's been a daunting trajectory for us, really exciting and a lot of fun, but also really challenging. And what's crazy is that we have sight to doubling in size again in the very foreseeable future. Our business is quite cash flow generative, so we've been reinvesting aggressively in research and development and in consolidation. And so one of the challenges that we have, which gets to how we invest in communities and invest in employees, is ensuring that we kind of have the leadership, the very attributes that got us to this stage of the game need to be enhanced if we're going to get to the next level of our growth trajectory. I also thought, in the context of CECP, that I would share a couple of examples of case studies or impacts that we've had on the environment. So going back to some of the earlier examples I cited, environmental justice for us is a key focus. We help our industrial partners that often have production facilities in underrepresented communities understand the impact of environmental emissions on community health. And so in the city of Denver, for example, we have environmental sensors and software installed around the perimeter of several of our industrial clients and the community. And because we are qualified to provide regulatorily acceptable data, both our client and the community can see air emissions footprints in real time. So the data is transparent, it's of top-notch quality. And so there's a lot of trust being built between our clients and the community, and it's gone a long way to not only protecting the environment and the health of the communities, but also with protecting jobs and the reputation of our client. That same platform that we invested in early is also helping the kids in Denver's school districts understand air quality near their schools in real time, depending on the socioeconomic nature of the neighborhood. The air quality at different times is impacted in different ways, depending on what time of the day we're talking about. And so the kids can alter when they go out, and the administrators and the teachers can figure out when kids can go out for recess, for example, to ensure that their health is protected. As another example of work that we're really excited about, we work on water treatment and water access near Sydney, Australia, for example. We have successfully removed and reduced the contaminant plume of PFAS, or forever chemicals, from the drinking water near the Air Force Base. What's particularly compelling about what we've done is that we've gone beyond what many consider to be very stringent environmental regulations, and we've gotten the water to non-detect for PFAS, which very few can say they've gotten to. And we do that less for commercial reasons and more because we want to ensure that we would be comfortable having our kids drink the water as well. And so we're getting to below regulatory requirements. And what's also really important is the way we've designed our solution. We've done it by generating almost no waste. Historically, when we remove contaminants from various environmental media like air, water, or soil, that waste needs to get disposed of. And we've developed technology and patents to not only remove the PFAS, but significantly distill it down and concentrate it. And as a result, it's a much more sustainable solution. And we don't have to worry as much about waste generation. And that's part of why I'm here in Scandinavia, because that sustainability of the solution and the efficacy of the water treatment is very meaningful out here. And the regulatory thresholds are also very low out here. And so our clients are thrilled, and we're excited that they're thrilled, and we're excited to share more of that story. We just have very little market awareness as to some of our capabilities. And then Daryl alluded to this earlier regarding climate change and carbon dioxide removal. Some of our very early investments in greenhouse gas measurement gave us a little bit of an advantage, being one of the largest air testing firms, with understanding where some of the emissions risks are. And so we've been able to very successfully quantify how global footprints for many of our large multinational conglomerate clients are changing over time. And because we had visibility into footprints, and given our clients' desire to reduce their footprint, we were asked to see if we could develop a mechanism to extract CO2 from the production processes. And so we're currently working with a major brewery outside of Denver, Colorado. Our technology is different in that most of what exists in the market today are amine-based solutions. And ours is different in that it's a water-based solvent, so it's much less environmentally toxic and very, very effective. That's where a lot of our patents come in. And we're currently capturing over 99.5% of the CO2. And what's particularly compelling about the way we're doing it is that we're converting that CO2 into bicarbonate or soda ash, which our brewery client then uses as an input in the bottle making process. And so the bottle that holds the beer is effectively your captured CO2. It's a fully closed loop, or as some of our investors now call it, a circular economy solution. And so that type of innovation also makes us really proud, because we're not only helping measure and quantify, but then extract greenhouse gases from the atmosphere to have a positive climate impact. Across our business, we've stopped billions of tons of methane from leaking. We've treated billions of liters of water. We've helped communities around the world, and we've started to publish more of this data. But the societal impact of our business is both measurable and scalable, which is what is so much fun about what we're trying to do. And we publish this and specific data in our sustainability report, which is critical to our mission, going back to kind of my early quotation of our mission. And so you can all access it on our website. And I think the one other point I'd like to make before I wrap this up is that, separate from the impact to our clients and our communities, internally, we're committed to, internally at Montrose, we're committed to net zero emissions and being fully gender balanced by 2040. And this was done perhaps more because we were just selecting folks that we thought would be most impactful to the business, but our management team is quite diverse. Half of the executive leadership team, so my team and my direct reports, come from diverse backgrounds. And then on the board, we recently added 2 female board members and are thrilled to be hopefully adding more in the very near future. We, as a STEM business, we've been particularly focused on recruiting, retaining, and promoting our women scientists and leaders. We were committed to pay parity well before it was part of our publications with sustainability frameworks. And then the one other part of our business that we're really proud of is that safety is key. It's key to everything that we do. Our folks are often dealing with dangerous situations or dangerous contaminants. And so that was our first investment as a company, even before we got into operating infrastructure or finance infrastructure. And over time, we've built the team, the safety team out, and we've received multiple National Safety Council awards for our excellence and leadership with employee safety. So I don't know if that falls directly into any one specific E, S, or G metric, but that's something that matters a lot to our company and to our people. There's much more we can do, but it's been a stellar journey so far, and we're proud of how much we've accomplished in the first 10 years of our existence. So that's kind of the story of Montrose. We would love to engage with all of you more to the extent environmental stewardship is of interest to you. This is something we specialize in, and we believe we can add a lot to your efforts and hopefully learn a lot from you as well. So, Daryl, that's kind of the summary of Montrose. Hopefully that was clear. Again, sorry for the background noise. I'm at the airport, but thank you so much for the time.
Right. No, that's terrific. So thank you, Vijay, for that. Clear, concise, kind of integrated summary of what Montrose Environmental is all about, and how your efforts kind of connect to values of the enterprise and value of the company as well. We've had a few questions come in, and others we invite in. Vijay is capping here a list of distinguished CEOs who shared their plans and shared their innovation in terms of addressing climate and other issues, and different approaches from different areas. But yours, with both the prevention but also the remediation side, is a great model, and a relatively new company, whereas others like a Siemens and others are retrofitting themselves. So a few questions that are coming in. First up, you all recently went public, I think about 2020, from what you said. Yeah. What are some of the general challenges you're facing overall, and then specifically around setting any climate targets?
Yeah, we, there's two challenges that come to mind, which I guess I can be more open with in this kind of forum, Daryl. The first is, we, as a public company, we kind of have to manage to annual and quarterly guidance and quarterly expectations. And as we think about being at this stage of our growth, and we're kind of in the early stages of kind of a logarithmic growth cycle, investing in next generation technologies, investing in research and development, but doing it when we don't necessarily have the balance sheet or cash flow profile of many of the companies that make up CECP is challenging, right? So investors want the benefit of it without necessarily the cash drain or the margin impact of making those types of investments. And so managing through that's been tough. We tend to think in 5 and 10 year increments, and we're kind of learning to think in 1 and 2 year increments by virtue of how, even though everyone says they're long term, public markets tend to be a little near term in focus. And so that's been hard for me and my CFO in particular, and the broader executive team. The other part of it for us, Daryl, is we're still a relatively new company. We're young, as I mentioned, and our brand is not really well known. And so even though we have some pretty compelling solutions and technologies that are really resonating in the market, we need to do a better job kind of building market awareness of what we can do. This isn't just conceptual for us. We've got actual answers, actual solutions, actual technologies, and a pretty compelling track record. And so getting the word out there is going to take some effort and time, and something I have to do a better job at.
That's a great, the challenges. Andrew Liveris, the former CEO at Dow Chemical, used to talk about being in a long cycle business in a short cycle world. That's the challenge we face.
He said it more elegantly than I ever could. Yeah.
Particularly when you think about climate solutions, which are probably not, it's take us a few hundred years to get in the position we are. So solving those probably isn't going to happen overnight, but the urgency is great. But how do you then manage that through the group is a key one. To that end, over the next 5 years, how do you see governance improvements to the organization? Are there any that you're targeting or phasing in or focusing on to improve the overall governance of Montrose?
Yeah, that's a big sticking point for our shareholders as a governance in the context of climate change, Daryl, or do you mean just more broadly?
I think broadly, but we could certainly bring it back to climate change.
Yeah, no, I think broadly. Being newly public, we have more protections than is typical for a more mature public company. And that, especially for our larger shareholders, that we've been lucky in that they've been very loyal to us, and they've stuck with us since IPO and are very engaged with us. They've made it clear that they'd like to see over time a predictable cadence of the removal of those protections so that the company's profile is more shareholder friendly. I think what's really encouraging for me is that the board and our chairman in particular are very open to that. They've been engaged with that. I've been very engaged with our shareholders, and so I expect we'll be coming out with some very constructive plans in the near future, addressing a lot of the feedback that we've gotten. But that's a big area, I would say, of any conversation we have around sustainability or ESG. That probably takes up 90% of the oxygen in the room. And then, as it relates to climate change, we've made internal commitments, Daryl, as I alluded to in my opening remarks. I think, one of the things that we need to help do as we continue to innovate in the space is try and distill down some of the rhetoric that we see in it's unfortunate some of this has gotten politicized, And we want to make sure that we are bringing kind of science to the table, because a lot of what we're hearing in terms of the practicality of achieving certain targets or the availability of solutions to actually achieve some of those targets is not necessarily there. So we can make, as we're demonstrating, very constructive progress, and we can make positive, we can take positive steps, but setting goals that may not be achievable may create more trouble perhaps than they're worth, and may not get us to the end result that we desire. So we're working through that with our clients and with the political class, and that's taken quite a bit of effort as well.
No, it is two separate challenges there, I think, as you face, one, certainly on the governance as a new company, and how do you kind of build in that, infrastructure and the policies and procedures. Another privately or publicly held company, and we basically laid out a 5-year plan. We can't do it all at once. Here are the pieces we're going to go along the way to give ourselves the breathing room to really build and kind of move from a straggling teenager to be an adult. It is that same kind of thing. We need some management areas.
Oh, you're complimentary. Our Todd, our chief commercial officer, called us a toddler, so I guess we've evolved a little bit.
So somewhere along that piece is time in some of those areas, but laying it out and setting the expectations and meeting those, I think, really help. And I think similarly, as you think about setting the targets, and we're we encourage companies at least to not overcommit upfront, have a plan, progress better than that, and that helps to build the credibility, but not easy, because you have a lot of people asking for faster, more now, and meeting to the research. So that end, how does your stakeholder engagement look when it comes to key stakeholders, but it's particularly investors? I mean, do you have special engagement programs? How do you do that as a relatively new public company with a lot going on, right, and a lot of growth happening?
Yeah, we think of our stakeholders in kind of 4 buckets, Daryl, and shareholders are a key constituency, but our employees are also shareholders in Montrose. We have always been very forward-leaning with employee ownership in the business, and so prior to being public, almost a third of Montrose was owned by our employees, and so that is something that matters a lot to us. And so they're not only shareholders but also stakeholders. And we spend a lot of time thinking through how to make a positive impact on their overall career trajectories, but also on their impact on the environment. Communities are a big part of what we're focused on. So a lot of the examples I alluded to obviously are profit generative and cash flow generative, but we're having a positive impact on the local environment and community health. And then we have toxicologists validating a lot of the positive impact on communities that we're having. Our clients obviously are, perhaps the most important, or one of our most important constituencies. They're the folks that kind of either believe in us or give us a chance to prove it out. And then shareholders, of course. And, on the shareholder side, that's a key part of my job. I spend almost a third of my time engaging on these topics. And, this world that was at one point called ESG, and now we hear terms like sustainability, matters to different degrees, but it is kind of ubiquitous when folks really come down to what they value. And so what we're doing internally, externally, and on governance matters a lot. And so we talk a lot about that, and we've been publishing data, so there's a consistent, measurable cadence of information that's presented to our shareholders in a way that they can hold us accountable and see if we're doing the things they expect us to do.
That's great. And it is, I mean, you have the critical stakeholders, and their needs are asymmetric. At different times, they have different needs, right. And challenge of the company, what you're doing, is how do you kind of integrate and bring that all together? We're seeing a lot, we've had a major discussion talking about some of the upcoming regulations, mandating disclosures around ESG and other types of topics. Certainly in Europe, you guys have a presence there. California, well, SEC expected to weigh in as well. How are you all dealing with that? Now, we talk to a lot of big companies. They can have teams that are having. You guys are much smaller. How are you thinking about your readiness and what you do from the disclosure standpoint?
Candidly, it's a real challenge. There are so many different frameworks, and depending on our investors and what they value, some of them have their own. The reporting requirements are all a little different. They're asking the same general questions, but just like financial reporting, if I have to report it in a verifiable way and a replicable way to each different constituency, it becomes really hard. In Europe, what's interesting is that we just actually spent last night having dinner with one of our clients where we had a lot of success with water treatment. And they've made a series of commitments getting to net zero very quickly, using all renewable energy, not just within their own facilities, but any vendor that touches them. And all of the environmental reporting has now been handed over as of 2024 to the CFO, given various local and governmental regulations. And so it's a different ballgame here compared to what we're dealing with at home. But it's also a challenge, right? It's about the consistency of the frameworks. There isn't a gap equivalent for environmental reporting, right? Which has been a challenge. On the flip side, we've committed to measuring scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions like we do for our clients internally. Scope 3 is a bit tougher, to be completely honest, because that is so nebulous in many ways. But as long as we're doing it in a consistent way and demonstrating how we're doing it and publishing the data, then we can be held accountable to whether we're having a positive impact or not. But scope 1 and 2, that's within our control. We can get to those. And then, on the S&G, we're picking different sets of metrics that we think matter to how the business runs. We're not where we need to be on all metrics, but we're certainly making a lot of great progress.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and you have your scope 1 and 2, but you are other people's scope 3, right? As you talked about. Right. Part of the
fortunately we're actually a positive contribution to scope 3,
positive, which is good news. On that side, whereas there's gonna be a few others who will kind of struggle on that. And then finding, really, as we've talked with a lot of the companies over the last couple of days, is lots of will be reported on, but what's most material? So what are those big few that you can really make an impact and a difference? Seems to be an emerging trend we're hearing from companies. So some good stuff. But thank you so much for this. Any other comments you have as you have a chance here to talk with the folks around the globe? You've actually made great progress over 10 years. Bringing some real leadership, proven model in some ways. But are there other things you want to kind of share with the group?
No, I mean, I think we would. We're brand new to CCP, Daryl, so we're thrilled to be part of your incredible vision and organization. I'd love to personally engage a little bit more. I think we can do a lot. And grow a lot from this relationship. So no, we're really grateful for the time.
Great. Vijay, appreciate it. Thanks so much for your presentation, for the good work you're doing. Enjoy your time in Northern Europe. We'll be concluding now. We'll have Jen Moore from CCP is going to be kind of sharing some insights around, we've talked a lot about reporting looking backward, but now talking about where we move forward in terms of companies like you've done, is really kind of sharing their integrated sustainable plans. Here's where we're headed as we go forward. But thanks much for your it works. All the best.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, be well. Take care.